Yesterday what marked World Hijab Day. Now, before I go on to talk about my thoughts on this, I'm just going to read out the Wikipedia article. I don't usually do that, but this is a relatively short article, so just go read it out to provide some context. World Hijab Day is an annual event founded by Nazma Khan in 2013. This event takes place on February the 1st each year in 140 countries worldwide. Its stated purpose is to encourage women of all religions and backgrounds to wear and experience a hijab. Event organizers describe it as an opportunity for non-Muslim women to experience the hijab. Okay, so basically this is a day to promote the hijab as a garment, and from their perspective as a way of empowering women. Now, well, I'll get onto my own views just in a second, but inevitably this event has had criticism and controversy. The official name, incidentally, is Insamamul Haq. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Okay, so criticism of the event has come from some prominent people, some prominent Muslim reformers. Feminist activist and Muslim reformer Azra Namani says, as Muslim women, we actually ask you not to wear the hijab in the name of interfaith solidarity. Going on to say, this modern day movement spreads an ideology of political Islam. Muslim reformer Majid Nawaz accuses the day as being a well-financed effort by conservative Muslims to dominate modern Muslim societies, and says that the event spreads a misleading interpretation that the head covering is always worn voluntarily, and that hijab purely means headscarf. He also described the event as worse than passe, suggesting that the name be changed to hijab is a choice day. Um, I would more or less echo the concerns of Majid Nawaz. One of the most frustrating things I find about the whole hijab debate is the projection that its proponents put out that it's all about choice. That simply is not the case. Now, it's true that in liberal democracies where women wear the hijab, in most cases they probably do choose to wear it. Um, and I would digress somewhat from some conservative points of view in the West, that is. I'm not talking about conservative Islam. So I would digress somewhat from the alt right attitude to this, in that I wouldn't propose an outright ban on the hijab. Why? Well, firstly, I see problems associated with the burqa and the niqab that I don't think the hijab necessarily has. Most notably, the hijab doesn't cover the face, so you can easily communicate with someone in a hijab. You can see her face, you can see her facial expressions, so there's no communication barrier. That doesn't mean I think it's a good thing. It doesn't mean I think it's something that should be encouraged. I am not a fan of this day, but I do think it's important to differentiate between the hijab and the burqa and the niqab. I believe the burqa and the niqab have no place in secular democracy at all, and the hijab itself is arguably a political statement. But if I could just speak briefly about some personal experience I've had, I have a friend in Canada, not a close friend, but an online friend, let's put it that way. Someone I'm in mutual groups with and I talk with occasionally. She wears a hijab, she's Muslim. I raised these points to her about free will and so on, and the fact that some women don't have a choice, and she actually agreed with me. You know, she didn't get all defensive and say, "Oh, the hijab is all about," etc., etc. And frankly, a lot of Muslim women would get that sort of defensive attitude. So I think it's a little bit misguided to assume that all women who wear the hijab are Pan-Islamists. I don't quite go down that line of thinking. I also think it's if Muslim women are going to wear something, it's better that they wear the hijab than far more conservative items like the niqab and the burqa. So to me, the hijab is not a major issue. I'd be far more concerned if it was World Niqab Day. Nevertheless, I do recognise what Majid Nawaz is saying, and I think he's right. I think the organisers probably are pushing a political agenda. Um, you know, their stated goal is event organisers describe it as an opportunity for non-Muslim women to experience a hijab. How about an opportunity for Muslim women to not experience a hijab. Now, how about that? I'm in two minds whether to Facebook the group or not and ask them these questions directly. The reason I'm in two minds about it is because they might just block me, or they might, you know, I won't know until I try. I don't really want to get into a huge back and forth with them. This video will really serve the purpose of, putting it out there. I don't agree with the concept of sending out the message that all Muslim women who wear it have a choice. The organisers know full well that there are conservative Islamic societies where women do not have a choice. There are parts of Pakistan, there's parts of Iran, not the whole of Iran. Tehran's a bit more cosmopolitan, but there's definitely parts of rural Iran and parts of Sudan, parts of Somalia, not even parts in those countries, I would suggest universally, women do not have a choice. So to send out this message that women have a choice is misleading. I would respectfully say to those women who choose to wear it, okay, but do you respect the choice of women who choose not to wear it? There are also problems connected in the message of the hijab. For example, it's to protect modesty and privacy. Well, that's all very well, but the underlying message in that is then if a woman doesn't wear the hijab, she's not being modest. So this is insulting in some ways. This concept is insulting to women who don't wear it. I think it's about mutual respect. I don't believe in an outright ban because in cases where women are making that choice, it's difficult to tell people what they can and can't wear. That does go against liberal principles. Now, this is a real difficult balancing line because on one hand, and I have been very vocal in what I would say is, the need to speak out against Islamist ideology. That is extremely important. So for that reason, I certainly don't think there should be any government pandering to this sort of event. I'm not suggesting there is, but the fact it takes place in 140 countries, it's clearly being politicized. I think that's a mistake. Um, so basically, I don't agree with the whole concept of this day. As for wearing the hijab, would I want a complete ban? I think that might be counterproductive. I'm all for banning the burqa and the niqab. Just to clarify, the burqa is a full covering, akin to what you see women in Afghanistan wearing under the Taliban. The niqab is somewhat similar, but that's where you have the eye slit. The only difference, as I understand it, and I'll be happy to amend this if I make mistakes, but as I understand it, the difference between a niqab and a burqa is a niqab is the eye slit, whereas a burqa is complete, like even the eye is meshed over. The chador is similar to the burqa. Now, apologists for some of these very conservative items will contend, oh, but you see Christian nuns wearing head coverings, you see, and then they'll point to examples all over the world that are not necessarily to do with Islam. But that is very specific in the case of Christian nuns. Nuns are a religious order, they're not mainstream Christian women. They're a religious order. And of course, you can find examples in history of conservative Christian societies where women would have had to cover up in a certain way, and men for that matter. Puritan England, a woman would not have went down well if she had, shown any flesh really. So certainly there is a history there, but that is just the point. It's history. We're talking about today. We're talking about pushing a particular agenda. The only area where I digress, like I say, from some of the more conservative angles on this, Western conservative angles, is that they would propose an outright ban. I wouldn't necessarily propose that. However, I would propose that those proponents of it answer some very important questions. Number one, do you consider women who don't wear the hijab to be somehow loose in morals? Because I think that is very insulting to the integrity of those women. Secondly, if it really is about free choice, can you prove it by taking off the hijab? Now, I don't think anyone should be forced to take it off, but if it is about free choice, then that shouldn't be an issue. Okay? So I think there are important questions with this. I definitely would question the motivations of the organizers. Um, I would only caution people that not every woman who wears a hijab is a Quran thumping Islamist fundamentalist. Um, but is it something I think should be encouraged? Definitely not. I don't think the hijab is as much, or I don't think it's even comparable to the niqab and the burqa. But I do agree with what Majid Nawaz and Azra Nomani said. The whole concept of this day has serious, issues. And bear in mind, before the Islamic Revolution in Iran, women fought hard to have the freedom of choice not to wear it. Of course, when the Islamic Revolution came, the situation became a lot more conservative. Like I say, the situation in Tehran today is a bit more, it's a bit different from the rest of the country. Tehran is a large cosmopolitan city. I know Iranian women who absolutely don't wear the hijab at all. Um, as far as I know, they're not even that religious. So Iran is a very interesting country. It's certainly got that neo-conservative Islamist element. Um, I think it's more. I actually think it's more diverse in Saudi Arabia, um, but that's really nitpicking. The point is here, there is there is a mentality that the wearing of the hijab is all about modesty. There's a political message behind this. It's misleading to suggest it's just an item of clothing, and I think its proponents know that full well. They know that it is a political message. So I would say that women who choose to wear the hijab, but also especially more fundamentalist dress. When I am in a public street and I see a woman wearing a niqab, I don't give her dirty looks. I don't say anything to her or anything like that. But I do think, well, that is a person who is basically rejecting Western society. She is making a statement. I want to stand out. I do not accept Western society. I do not want other men looking at me as as a woman. We're not even talking about objectification because their concept of objectification is very different than Western third wave feminists. It's ironic. Western third wave feminists see everything as objectification. So every depiction of women is objectification. Um, but ironically, actually, Islamist thinking is somewhat similar, but their attitude is, well, actually, it's ironic when you think about it. There's some similarities between the way that feminists want to control female body image and the way Islamist Puritans want to control female body image. If it really is about self determination, both feminists and Islamists need to respect that women may well choose to do something. So, Western feminists who may say, you know, uh, the hijab is no choice whatsoever, they need to respect the fact that some Muslim women do choose to wear it. But those Islamists who try to claim that it's all about free choice, they're lying. They're just lying because in many parts of the world it isn't. And finally, there has been crossover recently because they found mutual enemies in Donald Trump and the conservative right. So it's interesting that feminists are now kind of putting aside. I mean, I mentioned feminists, but it's actually a minority of feminists who are speaking out about the contradictory messages that, saying this item of clothing gives women liberation, and yet there is a real issue with women not having that choice in many parts of the world. I should say my friend absolutely agreed that women should have the choice not to wear it. But, there is a lot of contradictory messages coming out from both the feminist movement and from conservative Muslims. And sometimes they tend to cross over, like I say, when they have a common opponent, like Donald Trump. Um, so, summed up, I don't support this day. I think it is guided by an Islamist agenda. And they're smart about it because they could have said World Niqab Day. They know full well that everyone would have absolutely seen that for what it is. This is kind of like the polite version in a sense, because the hijab is less, visually different as an item of clothing than the niqab or the burqa. I don't propose an outright ban on the hijab. I think that could be problematic, but I'm certainly not going to go out of my way to defend it and say that it's a good thing, because so long as women and it isn't just Muslim women, if, for example, female journalists or female politicians even go to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, they would have to dress in a certain way. And this, I'm not just talking about average women, I'm talking about powerful women as well. The Queen, our Queen, had to, wear the appropriate head covering when she visited her Saudi counterparts. If Theresa May went to Riyadh tomorrow, she would absolutely be expected to wear some sort of head covering. So, and sometimes this extends over when, not so long ago, a Saudi delegation in the south of France tried to actually have a beach blocked off because, of course, being France, people were very liberal with that. And of course, there was a whole burkini debate last year. What I basically take issue with is the politicization of the hijab by Islamists. That is something that is irrefutable. So I actually think there are Muslim women out there who really do see it as just enabling them to express themselves and so on. And in a sense, they're being used. I don't think they're necessarily pan Islamists. I don't think every woman who wears a hijab is a hardcore, intolerant Islamist. But I do think they need to be wary that the people behind events like this are using it for political purposes. So I absolutely would go along with what Majid Nawaz and Azra Namani are saying about this. Anyway, I'll round this up. If you wear the hijab, a simple question for you. Okay, you're saying that it's your choice to wear the hijab, but do you accept that there are parts of the world where women do not have that choice? And would you therefore be okay with a day, for example, inviting Muslim women not to wear it? Because this works both ways, and that's something that the Islamists can't seem to understand. So, yeah, we do need to be very, very wary of an event like this. Let me know your thoughts.